Before we begin, I'd like to backtrack a bit to 2010. Konami had released the Monster Figure Collection, where you could purchase figures and cards, both of which were compatible with dual terminal machines. These were mostly 5Ds figures and all dragons, up until about the third and final box, which included the XYZ Dragon Cannon and the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Tyrant Dragon on here was used by Rex Raptor, but he was only relevant for one duel in the beginning of the first season, and if I'm not mistaken, Tyrant Dragon was only in a filler duel. Horus is an iconic and horrifying creature, but most fans probably don't even know it was in the anime. I can't even be bothered to Google the guy's name. And the Dragon Cannon is just a Megazord with no legs. It's not even actually a dragon. For both Red Eyes and Harpy's pet dragon to be snubbed here is a crime and a half. The year is 2012, and the OCG gets the newest Gold Series set. Yugi gets a gold Blackluster Soldier now that it's unbanned. Kaiba gets enemy controller and soul release since these saw side deck experimentation for different decks. And Joey got jack shit. January 24th. We'll be taking an interesting detour here. You're probably aware that amongst these last few years I've covered was the era of dual terminal. The dual terminal machines scattered across the United States and their card pools came from the OCG sets. On this date, the set Ouroboros Wicked Dragon of Destruction released and as the final wave of support for this series. Now, what's important isn't the cards, but that with each of these sets were updates to the machines. On the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fandom website, and any other website I was able to find with this data, the Ouroboros section is the only one with a listed deck list for Joey Wheeler and Seto Kaiba. Although, I couldn't find anything that proves that they weren't already duelable characters. They each had 2 deck versions with 11 total cards, since dual terminal duels were played in a format similar to Speed Duel. If you're tabbed out, I ask that you tab back in for this segment. Under Easy Mode, Joey's strongest monster was Alligator's Sword. He relied on Shield and Sword, he had a Dragon's Chick, but no Red Eyes to summon, and Magical Arm Shield was his only defense. The Wikipedia does not label either of Kaiba's decks as Easy or Hard Mode. There is only version 1 and version 2. This was why. In the supposed Hard Mode deck, Joey had Red Eyes, but Black Chick and Grave Robber were both removed for the dice cards. The rest was the same. Kaiba's version 2 deck was, in my opinion, significantly weaker, moving from the Blue Eye strategy to a Union one, but without a lucky die roll or coin flip, a single beat stick like the X-Head Cannon would run over Joey's deck. So, if you pulled these cards from a previous machine,
you don't stand a ghost of a chance.
Including 2 preview wave machines, there were 9 total dual terminal releases. On screen is every Kaiba and Joey card ever distributed, not including duplicates. Inferno Fire Blast and Red Eyes were the only rares that Joey received, with the rest being commons. Kaiba also had 2 rares, but Blue Eyes came as a super. You can tab out now. Galactic Overlord came crashing down with a Light Ray archetype. Just like the GX era had dark counterparts of certain monsters, the Zexal era now has this. Most of these are summoned by having a certain number of light monsters in your graveyard, and 2 of them are warriors. How inclusive for Joey. Light Ray Greffer can throw out and banish monsters to help meet the summoning requirements of the other Light Rays. And we also have a new Gearfried monster. It can banish warriors from the grave to negate and destroy spells and traps, but requires only warrior monsters be on your field to use its effect. This is the only monster in the archetype with a restriction like this. Good thing Joey has plenty of those, except you can't exactly make a cohesive deck out of them. Guiltia, Mirage Knight, and Gearfried were unsummonable. The other 3 are tributes, and Rocket Warrior isn't exactly the best monster to use. This also means the Gearfrieds just refuse to cooperate with one another. Now what's funny is Kaiba not only has more than enough light monsters to summon this card, but Blade Knight and Kaiba Man are easily incorporable monsters that fulfill Gearfried's conditions. And we all know that the Blue Eyes cards make drawing and deck thinning a lot easier now. I'm not saying that people actually played this. I'm just saying that if you had to choose between running this with the Silent Swordsman and the Poké Knights, Blade Knight and the Blue Eyes, or these guys, I think the choice is obvious. It's just really funny that a retrain of a Joey card works significantly better with Kaiba's cards. The TCG received a new product called Battle Pack Epic Dawn, aimed to encourage fans to build decks using only what you pull from this pack. Here's what Joey got, and here's what Kaiba got. And once again, Obelisk the Tormentor was included as the only God card. There have been so many packs like this, I won't be bothering to cover them anymore. The biggest reason I brought up the Battle Pack is because I forgot that a year after Ring of Destruction was banned, the Premature Burial got banned as well. That's really all I wanted to say. June 12th. This is one of my favorite and most memorable dates of the game's history because it was the release date for Gold Series Haunted Mine. The most amazing name for a product with Ghost Rare cards. But this one combined Ghost Rare technology with the Gold Rare technology. Unfortunately for Joey, the set was stuffed with zombie and fiend support to fit the haunted theme, so he did not get any Gold Rares here. But of course, the Blue Eyes received a Ghost Gold Rare, being the only one of the original Ace monsters to have a Gold Rare, period. This rarity must have been in our imaginations though, because after this set, it was never seen again. August 11th. In the month of August, the World Championships were held for the year. The Junior and Expert Division duelists who came 2nd through 4th received a prize card that was an Xyz version of the Dark Magician, and naturally, only the champions received a Blue Eyes version. That's actually everything for this year. 2012 ended with a Jump Festa weekend on December 22nd. To commemorate the end of the Mayan calendar and the impending doom of the world over is the Dragonic Forces of Chaos, Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, and White Dragon Wyver Burster. These monsters would become modern-day staples to Chaos strategies, even into the 2020s, long after they get restricted. 2013. This is a slow year so far for the Joey Kaiba beef. There was a fascinating update though. Remember Duelist Pack Kaiba? Return from the Different Dimension was about to skyrocket in value because February is when Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy was released, and along with it came the Dragon Rulers to establish a level of competitive dominance that had never been seen before. And since these dragons all had the ability to banish monsters, Kaiba's trap was going to prove beyond useful, even at its restricted status. Things began to pick up in May when V-Jump announced their July promo would be a new Kazuki Takahashi alt art of Blue Eyes Amongst the Stars. And June 15th, we would learn what it was looking for. The Blue-Eyed Dragon's Thundering Descent. A structure deck focused entirely on an ace monster and completely modernizing the strategy. First, I want to mention that it included Alexandrite Dragon, a 2000 attack light dragon vanilla, meaning it had no downsides. This card was originally a TCG exclusive from 2011, but I waited to mention it until now because this was the only proof that Konami views light dragons as Blue Eyes adjacent monsters, and I'm not just making things up to try to fit a narrative. But there was another 2000 attack dragon from 2011, Axe Dragonoot. But as we've seen from Dragons Collide, sometimes the dark monsters are worse to symbolize how Kaiba feels about Joey's dragon. So, Axe Dragonoot was given a downside where Alexandrite can exist with its fullest potential. Moving on from that though, remember back in 2008 when I said Honest was technically Blue Eye support? Kaiba Corp seems to think so too, because it's in this deck. Some low attack Dragon Tuners were added here to help activate cards of consonance. Amongst these was the Maiden with Eyes of Blue, who could call forth your dragon from the hand, deck, or graveyard. The Silver's Cry quick play that could summon a normal dragon from the grave. Both of these cards make it significantly easier to use a card that's become attached to Joey's name, the Symbols of Duty. Castle of Dragon Souls could make any ferocious beast more mighty with 700 whole extra points during either player's turn. And, in true Kaiba fashion, it could revive monsters from the Banished Zone. And all those tuners had a use with Kaiba's very own synchro, the Azurized Silver Dragon. While it's a bit more defensive in nature, it provided protection from card destruction to all your dragons for 2 turns, and at each of your standby phases would revive your Blue Eyes. Unfortunately, even Kaiba himself is not safe from Konami's need to weaken products for the West. Here are some of the cards from the OCG version, and here are the cards that they were replaced with. But in the grand scheme of things, this isn't much of an issue, because to this day, Red Eyes has never had its own structure deck. While I like being thorough, we're speeding through the next 2 products because they're just repeat situations of the exact same thing. Battle Pack 2 War of the Giants released playable versions of the original art God cards in the brand new Mosaic Rare. Joey had a few cards, but Kaiba's were better again. And this year's OCG tournament packs had a copy of Malefic Blue Eyes. When Saga of the Blue Eyes dropped in the West, it was also included in the silver value box, providing you with packs of the Tachyon Galaxy, Duelist Pack Kaiba, and an Azurized Case Topper, combining the forces of the mightiest creatures across different eras. October 11th. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for.
It's Legendary Collection 4, Joey's World!
Putting Wheeler in the spotlight for the first time in 10 years. It had 9 promos, more than Yugi's World had. And, in similar fashion, his promo cards were previously anime only. Amongst all the cards, we had 1 from Mai, 1 from Merrick, and 5 from Joey, all of which first debuted on TV a decade ago. Mai's card was the Harpy Lady Phoenix Formation, which popped monsters and did burn damage in exchange for Harpies not attacking. But this card was nerfed significantly on print. First, you were required to have at least 3 Harpies. Second, it targets now, and you have to destroy as many monsters as possible. While these effects didn't really matter much for this time period, it would cause it to age poorly. Thirdly, the burn damage is reduced for obvious reasons. And lastly, instead of only Harpies not attacking, you cannot conduct your battle phase whatsoever, in addition to not being able to special summon from your main or extra deck. Merrick had the Cards of Last Will trap card, which allows you to draw until you have 5. This too was nerfed, however. Instead of activating whenever your monster's attack points changed, like it did in the anime, you can only activate it when your monster is reduced to 0 specifically, so that it was an exact replica of the manga version. There were a few decks that could guarantee that they trigger this or even abuse the effect, but it's technically still a tighter restriction. Not that any of that matters. You see, Konami stated that the card was so powerful they had to make it an illegal card. Not counting tournament prize cards, there are only 6 illegal cards in the game. Guess that's what you get for stealing foolish. Lastly, Joey had the Blue Flame Swordsman, who can transfer its own attack to another monster and revive the Flame Swordsman upon destruction. This card, interestingly, had both buffs and nerfs. It could only gift exactly 600 attack and only to a warrior monster, but you probably weren't playing this in other decks anyways in the year 2013. It could only transfer attack during the battle phase, but in most situations, you'd never need it during the main phase anyhow. It had to banish itself from the graveyard, meaning it gets shut down by Necro Valley, Macrocosmos, and Imperial Iron Wall. But its biggest change was that it revives any Fire Warrior on destruction now. So, you could get Great Shogun Shien for the 6 Samurais, Phoenix Gearfried if you're a nerd, or any monster in the new Battling Boxer archetype that released this year. Overall, not bad, all things considered. What about the other 4? 4 sheep tokens. Now, to be fair, even Yugi's World came with tokens, and these were previously only available at conventions, so it's a good pickup for collectors. But that only adds up to 7 promos. So what's the last 2? To fit the token theme, they gave him 2 lamb tokens too. For Stray Lamb, a card that Joey never used. TCG debut though, yay. Obviously this is a Joey product, so they have to disrespect them somehow. Now let's dive into the product. The Mega Packs had lots of fiends, zombies, and other dark related cards, and not just Bones' cards either. Maybe it's because the set dropped in October, so it's like a Halloween thing, I don't know. Yugi also had 150 unrelated cards, but there are some important changes here. For one, this was the set where several cards received the errata, turning them into Archfiend cards. So now with Pandemonium or Archfiend Eris, you have a new pool of cards to search from. Mai, Keith, and Merrick were all technically in Yugi's world, but they didn't have their more signature cards included. And Keith and Mai specifically only had 2 to 3 cards, so that was expanded upon here. Joey's world also got 20 cards that until now have only ever been in the OCG. One of those cards was Sixth Sense. This trap card was never actually used in the anime. It was just in the background for one episode. But this is actually supposed to be based upon one of the most powerful cards Joey has ever used, Roll of Fate. This spell lets you roll a die, draw that many cards, and then mill that many cards. Of course, that would be entirely too powerful, so they nerfed it 3 times. Once when they required you to guess the number. Once more when you had to either draw or mill. And one last time when they made it a trap card. Now that we've established that this was a Joey card, you can probably already guess that they've waited 10 entire years after its OCG release to import the card. It was initially in the Valuable Book 6 alongside 2 other gambling Joey cards, Maximum 6 and Dangerous Machine Type 6. Ooh, how evil of you, Konami. The final connection is Valuable Book 6 releasing on September 19th, 3 days after Roll of Fate premiered in the anime. But wait, if I knew that this was a Joey card this whole time, why didn't I mention it in the 2003 section of the video? I thought it would be much more convincing to mention it here since this is a Joey marketed product. But much more significantly, I have no idea who played this card in real life. You see, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had a history of not being nearly as well documented as it could be. As a non-Japanese speaker, it's incredibly hard to find deck lists from this time period. The closest I can get is what Japanese player brought to the very first World Tournament in 03, but you can't play cards that aren't available in all territories. So while Sixth Sense is a great card, I have no easily searchable proof of its usage or its impact. What I can say is that they didn't play it long. About 1 year into its lifespan, it was restricted, and then perma-banned 6 months after that. Joey's World would follow suit because 1 week before it hit store shelves, Konami would release an October ban list to limit Sixth Sense. And it didn't stay there for long because 3 months later, the January 2014 ban list would drop, banning it for the rest of time. Off to a horrible start, but there's still 19 cards left. 1 was Heartbeat Dancer, which is cool for them. 2 are fusions for Rex and Bones, and the other 16 are vanillas. Joey's World had a grand total of 46 normal monsters in the set, which is the most normal monsters in any product since Metal Raiders, the second set of the franchise's history with 51 vanillas in it. Even the third set, Spell Ruler, had significantly less with only 23. And that's a perfect transition to the next strange decision that they made here. The Joey 9, or the Wheeler 9, as Duologs likes to call them. These were 9 monsters who had their flavor text changed, with Joey describing the monsters in his Dub's Brooklyn accent. Now, From a collector standpoint, there are some appreciated pickups here. Black Skull Dragon had its first printing in 9 years other than a North American Walmart pack Dark Legends. Red Eyes Wyvern, which was only a special edition promo, got a printing here as well. That's pretty much all I can say, because only a hardcore collector would care about all the different vanillas. Something fascinating that they did here was they reduced the amount of foils in the set to make them easier to pull. See, after the first Legendary Collection, these Mega Packs would give you 1 rare, 1 super rare, 1 ultra rare, and 1 secret rare. So, with these fixed pulls in every single pack, reducing the total foil count between Yugi's World to now means that the foils were technically easier to pull here. But that also means that Joey gets less foils for himself. I also have to explain here that with these sets, cards used by a character or that share a theme with the character are bunched together in the card list, number-wise. So that's how I can determine which cards are supposed to belong to Joey in Konami's eyes. Looking at you, Light Ray Gearfried. Here's the breakdown. Wheeler got 4 supers, only 2 ultras, and a whopping 6 secrets. Sadly, they all have some big caveats. For super rares, we have Baby Dragon, Red Eyes Black Chick, Polymerization, and Silent Doom. These are his 4 supers compared to Mai's massive total of 8. First of all, Chick is only here because it's related to Red Eyes, but this is an Atticus card, so now we're down to 3. Poly isn't exclusive to anyone, obviously, as we've seen with it being in Yugi's World as a super too. But what about how iconic it is to Joey's character? Well, actually, Joey has only ever used this card once. Joey's first fusion summon is in Duelist Kingdom when he makes the Black Skull Dragon, but he actually didn't own the spell. He used Copycat to steal Yugi's copy, so he was never seen owning Poly until Battle City. And despite having it in his hand for multiple duels, Alligator Sword Dragon was the only time he's ever activated it. Even in the YCS scripted duels, where we see voice actors do live readings, Joey was still only summoning Flame Swordsman and Alligator Sword. Silent Doom is also a card that he never canonically activated. He's only used it in the YCS duel the year prior. Silent Doom is actually a Seto Kaiba card. And, speaking of Kaiba, another super rare in this set is Super Rejuvenation, which is not only playable in Blue Eyes, but was abused to no end in Dragon Rulers, alongside Seto's Return from the Different Dimension. All in all, he only technically has 1 super, and it's goddamn Baby Dragon. Joey only had a measly 2 ultra rares. Again, outdone by Mai's 5. This is starting to feel like Mai's world more than it is Joey's world. Red Eyes Black Dragon and Monster Reborn were his 2 ultras. A secret rare Red Eyes would have been nice since it was only a secret as the Power of Chaos's game promo, but ultra is still respectable. But Monster Reborn is again a card that is not exclusive to him. And it's also in Yugi's World at the same rarity again, but is nowhere near as iconic to Joey versus literally any other duelist. Joey played this 4 times against Odeon, Kaiba, Mai, and Valen. But the last 2 are not canon duels. Even in his scripted duels, he never activates it. Kaiba, Merrick, and Yugi have several much more iconic uses of the card. Things get interesting when you look at the other ultras in the set. Reinforcement of the Army is a great staple that only had an ultra as a Hobby League card, so this is a nice printing. Stray Lamb was only here because they decided to print those damn tokens. It has no business being a foil card. Also, it's an Atticus card, if you didn't know. Blue Eyes got a foil upgrade for trade-in this set too. Now, Horn of Heaven and its counterpart, the Black Horn of Heaven, are here for some reason. It's a little bit strange, since these are the only cards in this entire set that are exclusive to Yugi. And what's stranger is that they are downgraded from the secret rares that they got in Yugi's world. The literal only reason I can come up with for why it's here is because the only time Horn of Heaven was activated was during the Bakura duel in Duelist Kingdom, where people's souls were turned into their favorite monster cards. And Joey, aka the Flame Swordsman, was sacrificed to the graveyard to meet its activation requirements. In that duel, he offered himself as tribute to prevent the Man-Eater bug from killing his friends, facing the Reaper as a consequence of his decision. And that's actually a very touching tribute to the man that is Joey Wheeler. Now, his 6 secrets. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, Raigeki, Pot of Greed, Scapegoat, Bottomless Trap Hole, and Foolish Burial. Bottomless was only in filler as well, but this is confirmation that it is in fact a Joey card and that I'm not just making stuff up here as I go, so I'm taking it. Foolish deserved a secret for the longest with its impact on the game and design, so I'm happy for it. Same goes for Scapegoat, but unfortunately it wouldn't be playable again until the Link era in late 2016, early 2017. Darkness Metal got its first secret here, which is amazing, but it's yet again another Atticus card, which is busted in Dragon Ruler, by the way, and also played in Blue Eyes, so it's another win for Kaiba fans. Raigeki was put in this deck by Merrick, so that's technically a Merrick card. So that leaves Pot of Greed. He plays it 4 times, but the only time that was canon was in Battle City against Kaiba. Imperial Iron Wall got a reprint here though, so now Duelists had a tech to fight the forces of the Dragon Rulers. But this doesn't stop Blue Eyes, who don't banish anything. Instead, this stuns the strongest Red Eyes monster, Atticus's Darkness Metal. Anyways, why settle for a secret Pot of Greed when the new Duelist Pack reprint gave you another chance to pull the ulti? Speaking of ultis, December 6th. On this day, we pull the spotlight off of Joey and back onto the other main characters with starter decks Yugi and Kaiba reloaded. This was the 3rd and 4th deck that these characters got in the TCG and OCG respectively, each with an ultimate rare of their ace monsters. The only pre-constructed product in history to ever have an ultimate. It doesn't matter what else is in here. 1, because it's a starter deck, not a structure deck. And 2, because Joey got left behind years ago. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's video. I hope that you guys are still enjoying this series. I'll continue to do my research and post as I'm able to. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.